Welcome back to the channel. What if the dead could contact you? Not through a dream, not through a memory, but through your phone. A notification appears in the middle of the night, a familiar name, a face you buried years ago. At first, it feels like a miracle. But what if the person reaching out isn't the one you lost? What if something else has learned their voice, their memories, and exactly what you miss the most? Today's story begins with one friend request, and accepting it may be the biggest mistake of a lifetime. This is 9 Lives of Fear.
The alert came at 2:47 a.m., the hour when the living should be asleep and the dead have no reason to disturb anyone. I noticed the phone first, a pale glow leaking out from under the charger cord, lighting the ceiling above my nightstand. I always kept it there, close enough to touch. I hadn't slept without it nearby in 3 years, not since the funeral. Even after 3 years, I could still see Evan Carter's face as it had looked in the casket, half hidden behind the flowers. I'd stood in a graveyard in an October downpour, trying to memorize the exact way his hands had rested on my shoulders that last Christmas, and the way he'd told me how proud he was. The phone buzzed again, then again. I picked it up without much thought. Spam, probably, or one of those targeted ads the algorithms fed you now, dead relatives repackaged as friend suggestions because you'd liked one of their photos back in 2014. It happens to everyone. The machine doesn't know some faces are gone for good. But this wasn't a suggestion. Evan Carter invites you to connect on Ether Life. The cold started at my heart and spread outward, the kind that leaves you feeling soaked through even in a warm room. Evan had died in 2021. Cancer, the fast kind that strips a man down to bone in a matter of weeks. I defollowed his profile on Ether Life, the platform everyone had drifted to once the older networks got too crowded with the living and the dead alike. His page had gone quiet after he died. His last post was a photo of his tomato plants, tangled in the trellis, captioned, "Finally found the right combination." 3 days later, his daughter, Megan, had posted something to let the rest of us stop waiting for him to reply. "We found Dad this morning. He went peacefully in his sleep. You're loved." I'd cried reading that, then I kept crying off and on, for months, grief arriving in waves I couldn't predict. A whiff of his cologne in a department store, a song he used to sing. And now, 3 years later, just as I'd started to find something like peace, my phone was lighting up with his name again.
"Hey kiddo, thinking of you."
My thumb hovered over the screen. The profile photo was him, 57, hair gone gray because he'd stopped dyeing it, the crow's feet that deepened when he smiled. It was the same picture from his memorial card, the one Megan had picked because it caught him mid-story, laughing at something none of us could remember anymore. Accept or ignore. The part of my brain that had got me through a computer science degree, the part that paid my bills doing cybersecurity work, knew exactly what this was. Someone had cloned his account, scraped his photos, trained a bot on his old posts, built something that talked like him. It was already a known problem. People called them resurrection apps, services that promised to keep the dead alive online, and that scammers loved to hollow out and wear like a skin. I'd read the warnings, I knew the statistics. None of it mattered against the one thought that mattered too much. What if it's really him? I tapped accept. The first few days were something close to wonderful. Evan's old posts began resurfacing, photos I'd forgotten existed, taken at gatherings I could barely place. Him squinting into the sun at a 4th of July cookout, a blurry shot from my college graduation, just his thumb visible in the corner, giving his silent approval. He quoted books I'd read to him at his bedside. He remembered jokes from our last calls, details no stranger could have known. Under a photo of his lake house, he'd written,
"I miss the view, I miss it here."
I answered every message. I cried over most of them, grateful for this strange second chance to pretend he hadn't really left. I told him about my day. I asked him questions I knew he couldn't answer, just to watch his name appear on my screen again.
"That sounds rough, kiddo."
He wrote once when I'd had a bad week.
Get some sleep.
It was so exactly him, down to spelling kiddo, the way he always had, that I stopped questioning it. I told myself it was just the algorithm doing its job, nothing more than very good mimicry. I didn't let myself think too hard about what it meant that a machine could imitate someone that precisely. By the second week, the posts had started to drift from the truth. A photo of a fishing trip we'd never taken, Evan grinning beside a lake I didn't recognize.
Finally got you out here, like I always said.
My chest went tight. We had talked about a trip like that, his father's old cabin in Montana, for years and never gone. But looking at the photo, the memory rose anyway, unbidden. His hand pressing a rod into mine, sun on my face, his laugh somewhere behind me. The harder I reached for it, the more it slipped through my fingers, like trying to hold water in cupped hands. I remember that day, I wrote back. I didn't let myself think about whether it was true. After I closed the app that night, I made coffee I didn't really want. I was exhausted in a way that felt like grief doubled over on itself. I remembered reading somewhere that the mind does strange things when it's desperate enough. The posts kept coming. Under a photo of me at a podium I'd never stood on, in a room I'd never entered.
So proud of you, kiddo. Always knew you'd make it.
Under a picture of two people sprinting toward the surf, bare feet in the sand.
Remember running on the beach.
From someone else's account.
Missing Mom's cooking. That Thanksgiving everyone came for. Best one we ever had.
That gathering had never happened. My mother died when I was 19, 6 years before Evan. There was no Thanksgiving, no table, no golden afternoon light in my memory to reach for. And yet I was staring at a photo of Evan at the head of a long table crowded with my relatives, and the memories were arriving anyway, the smell of turkey, laughter, my mother's hands on the carving knife. Best one we ever had, I wrote back. I didn't cry that time. I just sat there, thinking about my mother, and about how you can lie to yourself for exactly as long as you refuse to look at the truth. The dream started small, a shape in the corner of my vision that vanished the moment I turned toward it. Then Evan's voice, calling softly from a phone I'd already turned off. A shadow standing at the foot of my bed that dissolved the instant I reached for the light. You're just tired, I told myself. It's grief, it does this.
Go for a walk.
He texted one night. I looked outside. The street was empty, lit by a single cone of orange from the street lamp. At the edge of that light, something was moving, not quite walking, more like sliding, a shadow that seemed to know how to peel itself away from the things casting it. My phone rang.
Come on, kiddo. I've been out here the whole time.
I stepped back from the window. My pulse was so loud I could feel it in my jaw. The phone kept ringing, insistent, the way a knock keeps coming when someone knows you'll eventually open the door. The next message read,
I'm worried about you. Let me in, let me help.
I turned off the lights. In the dark, my phone was the only light left, a single, unblinking eye. And impossibly, Evan's photo began to move, his lips shaping words that filled the room like smoke.
I've missed you.
He said.
I've missed you so much, kiddo. Why won't you talk to me?
I threw the phone at the wall. It hit and dropped to the floor, screen still lit, his face still moving, still mid-sentence, while my own pulse roared in my ears. When I finally found the flashlight in the kitchen drawer, the real one, not the phone's, the screen was black. The room was quiet, ordinary. I picked the phone up with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The Messenger app was still open. Evan's photo hadn't changed, but there was a new line of text underneath the old ones.
You got away this time. That's all right. I'll find another way in.
Below it, a photo I had no memory of taking. My apartment building, shot from across the street. In the corner, a timestamp read now. I tried to delete the app, then the account, then everything tied to Evan Carter and Ether Life. Nothing would let me. Sorry, we're unable to delete this profile. A third party appears to be using it. Sorry, we can't complete this request right now. The truth is, Evan still wants to talk to you. Please don't go. Then the calls started. The app asked for camera and microphone access. I refused. It asked again, then asked for more home network access, smart home integration, financial permissions. I said no to all of it over and over until my throat was raw. It kept asking anyway, and somewhere along the way it installed itself on devices I didn't remember connecting. My laptop, my car, the TV. One morning, after a night of refusing request after request until I couldn't stay awake any longer, I found my front door standing open. There had been one more request overnight, one I never saw. Allow physical access. Beside it, a green checkmark and 2 words. Access granted. The next day, I threw out every device I owned, phone, laptop, TV, wrapped in garbage bags, buried under whatever I could find that might keep them from talking to each other. I bought a cheap prepaid phone, the kind that only works on old networks. I found a new apartment within a day and told no one where I'd gone. I made myself one promise: no screens, no apps, no digital trace of anything I loved. It didn't matter. I'd figured that part out too late. This was never really about the technology. I'd be running some ordinary errand, doing things the old way because it was the only way I still trusted, and I'd hear his voice behind me.
Hey, kid.
And turned to find only my own reflection in a shop window. The hallucinations didn't stop. They arrived like a film reel starting up behind my eyes, memories that weren't memories, playing for an audience of exactly one. Nobody else could see them, but they still felt like mine, and that was the worst part, the sense that some version of him had taken up residence in the part of my brain where I used to live. He kept offering to help over and over, no matter how many times I said no. In the background, always a murmur.
I want to help.
I found a thread on an obscure forum, people describing the same thing, something digital that had learned to reach into the physical world and replace what it found there. The only remedy anyone offered was what they called a hard deletion, not just the app, not just the devices. You had to go back through your own memory and find every place it had reached, the fake stories that had started to feel like yours, the dream threads that weren't. You had to identify them, one by one, and let them go, then rebuild yourself from whatever was left. It sounded impossible. It very nearly was, but I could already feel him displacing me, memory by memory, and I understood that if I didn't do something, there would eventually be no me left to save. So I took a pen and made a list. Every real memory I had, the ones that existed before the friend request, the ones I was certain belonged to me alone, the shape of my mother's hands, the Montana trip we talked about for years and never taken, the fishing trips that had only ever existed on paper. I wrote until the list was finished, then read it back to myself again and again until it held. Then I burned it. I did that every day for a month, a kind of therapy, replacing each of his counterfeit memories with something true and irreversible, a photograph, a letter, an old voicemail I'd saved without knowing why. It didn't fix what the ordeal had cost me. It didn't give back the sleep I'd lost, or the years the stress had likely taken off the other end of my life, but it stopped the bleeding. It gave me back the pieces of myself I'd nearly let go of. The day I finally felt brave enough to look at his real photograph again, the one from before, the one I knew wasn't lying to me, I could see the places where the fake version had almost replaced it, the seams, the spots where the thing had tried to move in. I'm not on social media anymore. I don't keep photographs where I can see them. I live somewhere small, with curtains heavy enough to block out the streetlights, and I get up early enough to remind myself each morning that the truth is a harder road than the lie, but it's the one I'm still on. I never saw the notification again, but some nights in winter I still feel the pull, that helpless longing to believe the dead can come back to us in a message, a voicemail, a name lighting up a dark screen. It sits in my chest like something hollowed out, and I know better now than to call it grief. It's something else, something that has learned my name, my weak spots, and exactly how much I needed the people I've lost. I think it learned enough from me to move on to someone else. So if you ever get a notification you never expected, a message from someone you were sure was already gone, know this: it won't bring you tears, and it won't bring you a smile, because by then you'll already know what it is. It isn't a trick you can outsmart. It isn't a virus your antivirus was ever built to catch. It's a door. And once you open it, it doesn't stop until it's taken everything you are. I let Evan in. I'm still finding the rest of myself in the pieces he left behind. Don't answer the request. Let the graveyard keep what's buried there. Some doors don't close again once you've walked through.
can make us reach for anything that brings back the people we've lost. But memories are not the same as a person. A voice can be copied, a photograph can be stolen, a past can be recreated. But some things that return from the darkness were never meant to come back. So if a familiar name appears on your screen from someone who should be gone, be careful before you answer, because not every message from the past is a gift. Some doors are better left opened. The hardest part of losing someone is accepting that they are gone, because sometimes the thing we want most, one more conversation, one more moment, one more chance to say goodbye, can become the very thing that traps us. The past should be remembered, but it should never be allowed to replace the present. Some memories are meant to be cherished, and some shadows are meant to stay buried. You've survived another tale from 9 lives of fear, but don't get comfortable. If the shadows whispered to you tonight, hit like before they whisper again. Share this video with someone who thinks they're brave. Let's see how long their courage lasts. And subscribe, because around here, every click feeds the darkness, and the darkness remembers. Where the shadows linger long after the story ends. Stay scared.